Welcome to Write with Love. I'm your host, Sarah Williams, best-selling author, speaker, and creative entrepreneur. Each week, I chat to passionate and inspiring authors about their journey in creative writing. Some are traditionally published, some do it themselves. Everyone's journey is different, and everyone has something interesting to say. We all love love and love what we do. Today's show is brought to you by our amazing fans and supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to help support the show and get some awesome bonus episodes, go to patreon.com/Sarah Williams Author to learn more. Now here's today's show. G'day and welcome to Write with Love. Today on the show, I've got a very special guest. It's Miss Rachael Johns. Thanks for joining me today.
I've been listening to your podcast for ages and I'm so excited to actually be on it.
You'll be a star today. Well, I'd love, before we get into all the nitty gritty that I want to ask you, I'd love if you could tell us about yourself and your journey to publication.
Oh, golly, how long have you got?
As long as it takes, dear.
Oh, it's be your longest podcast ever. Well, I never actually wanted to be a writer. I think I sort of know two kinds of writers: those who've said they've always wanted to write as long as they could remember, and those who came to it actually through therapy. I've kind of a few people I've met have said that something tragic or horrible happened in their life and they just sort of started writing, I guess, the way to express themselves. And then I realised that's kind of how I started, but it wasn't. You know, you're going to laugh when you find out what the thing was, but it was very serious at the time. So I wasn't a huge reader through high school. I did love all the Babysitters Club books and everything when I was younger, and my mum read to me and stuff. But in high school, I was more obsessed with boys. So didn't have time to read. I managed to get through all of high school English reading those, I think they were called York Notes, or there was the other one, that they tell you, they're little yellow books or whatever, yellow, navy blue, and they tell you everything about the themes, the characters, the plot. So why did you have to waste time reading the book, I always thought. And I managed to do quite well in English just doing that. I think I read one book in high school for English, and that was Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, which I did actually do a tribute to a few years later in my book Jilted, because I loved the character of Miss Havisham, who was left on her wedding day and then spent her life in her wedding dress. Mm-hmm. But so yeah, I wasn't actually obsessed with boys. I was more obsessed with one particular boy, and when I mean obsessed, I mean stalker obsessed. And thank God there wasn't Facebook obsessed, because basically I liked him from I think year 9 through to year 12 and beyond, and so everyone in the school knew that I was madly in love with him. I was not shy about it. He knew, the whole school knew. I used to be so embarrassing and do things like put letters in his bag saying, "Oh my gosh, you're such a spunk," all this stupid stuff. I even put a hole in my maths, it was my English room wall, through the cement of the 2 bricks for a whole year while I was supposed to, this is why I read no books in English, while I was supposed to be listening to English and doing my English work. I was putting a hole in between the 2 bricks with a ruler because I knew he had maths in the room next door, and I sat on the edge, so I was trying to be able to see through the room. This is how obsessed I was. Anyway, it shows that perseverance pays off, and I think that definitely was the same with my writing. I probably should have given up a long time before I got published, but I didn't. And so with this guy, we actually, in year 12, he asked me to the ball. And I think he only did that because he knew I would definitely say yes. And, I was a 17-year-old boy, kind of scary putting yourself out there. But he also knew that nobody else would dare say yes because I would kill them. So he didn't really have any choice. But anyway, we went to the ball at the beginning of year 12, and he thought, oh, maybe she's not as crazy and psycho as I thought. And anyway, we ended up going out for 5 months. And when I say going out, we saw each other, I think, twice outside of school because we lived quite far apart, neither of us had a license, that kind of thing. But, I thought he was the love of my life. I'm a romance writer, and you can imagine at 17 how I was, dramatic, emotional. We all are. But I thought he was the love of my life, that we're going to get married, have babies, live happily ever after. But I was also that crazy, dramatic, emotional girl. And in year 12, towards the end, he said something one day that I didn't like. I can't remember even what it was. And I said, I don't think this is working out, hoping that he would say, no, Rachel, you're the love of my life, don't leave me. And he said, yeah, I think you're right. So I accidentally dumped the love of my life in romance. People get accidentally pregnant. Well, I can tell you, you can also accidentally dump someone. I am the evidence. Anyway, and I was absolutely heartbroken. I don't know how I got through my year 12 exams or anything like that. So many tissues were used. And for some reason, over the summer holidays, when everyone else was having fun, shopping, going to the beach, partying, before they, started uni or TAFE or whatever they were going to do next, I wrote a book. I'm not actually sure you can call it a book. I wrote 80,000 words. It was about me and this boy and everything we'd ever said to each other, which wasn't much till year 12. It was basically me saying hello and him running in the other direction. And so it wasn't a very interesting book. The characters were cardboard characters, cutouts, even though they were based on real people. But even then, I knew you can't end a book really by accidentally dumping someone. Although I'm getting desperate now for stories, and I'm thinking maybe that's something I'll try in my real books. But anyway, so instead of accidentally dumping him in our book, I gave him a horrific disease and I killed him off. And it was the best therapy for me because I could, grieve him and get over him. And I knew that nobody else would ever would ever have a chance to be with him then. So I really enjoyed that process. As I said, it was 80,000 words, absolute rubbish, no plot. The characters were awful. The dialogue was terrible. It was just, thank God that there wasn't the ability to self-publish then, because I would have probably published it on the internet and everyone would be able to read it now. But as it is, it's tucked safely away in my bottom drawer and no one is ever going to see it until I'm dead. And then they find it. So I decided then, the week before I was going to start uni, actually, I was supposed to be doing primary school teaching and I wanted to be a teacher for as long as I could remember. And I said to my mum, you know what, I'm not going to be a primary school teacher. I'm going to be an author. I'm going to be famous and, I'm going to be published. It's going to be fantastic, And credit to her, she didn't say, oh, my goodness, this is a terrible idea. She said, okay. And so she helped me change to a writing degree the week before I started. And that was a terrible idea. That was the worst thing I could have ever done for my writing. I think there's a few reasons for that. One, I hadn't really read any books, and you need to read to be a writer. And so I was way behind everyone else kind of in the writing course. Also, sadly, it was the beginning sort of times. This is over 20 years ago now, and there weren't many writing degrees, and they were just sort of becoming a thing. And so I guess the universities were just trying to sort of work out how to do a writing degree. And so mine was shocking. We did things like cut out magazine articles. It felt like I was back in kindy, and we had to have this one. It's true. One of our main assessments for one of my courses was we had to keep a scrapbook or a file. And all we had to do was cut out anything from the newspaper or magazines that was to do with writing or publishing, and just tuck it in this folder. And basically the person with the thickest folder at the end of the semester got a high distinction, and so on. I know, I'm not joking.
Oh,
and, the other courses were maybe marginally a bit better. I really enjoyed the English ones. And the good thing about this is I found books and I found reading again, and I realised I absolutely loved reading. One of the early books I remember reading that I really loved was Bridget Jones' Diary. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of that genre that we call, it was called chick lit, still kind of is. Marianne Keyes, Lisa Jewell, Kathy Kelly, all those kind of books. I just found them and I loved them. Unfortunately, at uni, they want you to write a book like that will win the Pulitzer or the Booker Prize. Yeah. So I kind of, for all my years at uni, I was trying to do what I thought I should be doing, or what I really wanted to be doing was writing a more commercial book. I didn't know that was a thing back then, really. So I said, I'd sort of say to myself now, I think I was writing a weird combination of literary chick lit, which is not a thing. And also, I didn't learn anything about story or plot or conflict or all the things that I've, heard about since and learned about since. I'm a slow learner. I did an honours degree and almost failed that. So basically my instructor said, I think you should not consider a career in writing, that, maybe you should do a dip ed and do teaching. So I did do a dip ed, but all the time I was doing all this stuff, I really, really wanted to be a writer. Told you it was a long story, almost there. Anyway, I had another friend from uni who, I did dip ed, I got married, we moved down to a small country town called Kojonup in the south of West Australia. had a baby. But yeah, I still wanted to write. I was writing, but again, I wasn't writing anything good because I still didn't really know what I needed to do to write a book. And unfortunately, there wasn't Google back then, so you couldn't just go, well, I think the internet was like really early days. It was very hard to sort of, you didn't get the information you get now. So I couldn't research how to write a book and have all this stuff that you would now. Anyway, a friend of mine and I used to meet every few months. She went to uni with me, did the writing degree, and we used to lament over cake and stuff. Oh, we're never going to be published. It's so depressing. Now, looking back, I was actually not submitting many manuscripts. I think I submitted one manuscript in about the first 6 years or so, and I was trying to be a writer. And I've learnt since, I got a form rejection, and I've learnt since, you have to actually put yourself out there. No one's going to come knocking on your door and say, hey, have you got a book? Would you like me to publish it? So that I told you, slow learner. But anyway, we remembered, my friend and I, that we read an article, one of those articles that we had to cut out of the paper, about Mills and Boon books, and how apparently there was a number of people in Australia writing for Mills and Boon, and they were making an absolute packet. We remembered this, what it said. I don't know if that's exactly what it said, but to us it was like they were making money. And so we said, you know what? Let's forget the Booker Prize. Let's write a Mills and Boon. How hard can it be? Neither of us had ever read a Mills and Boon. My mother-in-law used to sit on the couch reading them at Christmas, and I remember thinking, oh, I can't believe she's reading that trash. Here I am reading Bridget Jones' Diary, so much more highbrow. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. And I was really lucky that I was working at the library in Coachnup, and there was a huge, massive Mills and Boon section. So, I mean, you write rural romance, you know what small towns are like. Everyone, knows everything about everyone. So I didn't want anyone to see that I was reading Mills and Boon, because I had that idea that a lot of people do, that they're all just, heaving bosoms and throbbing manhoods, just complete trash. I don't know where I got that from. It's just because I'd never read them. I never knew anyone who read them. It was just kind of something that a lot of us sort of, it develops, and it's a bizarre why it does. I don't even know if I'd seen a Mills and Boon before I met my mother-in-law. I read 50 in a month. I was pregnant with my second child at this stage, and they're they're quite small. So it was really good because I had a toddler and I was heavily pregnant, and it was something that I could achieve. I could actually finish the book. And you know what? I read all these books, and some I absolutely loved. Others, I didn't really, but that's like every book we read. And I realised they were not what I imagined, but maybe they were once upon a time, long ago. I don't know. Maybe that's why we have these misconceptions. But the modern ones that I'm reading were quite different from what I thought they were going to be. And I fell in love with the romance genre through that. And that sort of opened me up to other single title romance authors and stuff. But the good thing was that the internet was better then. And I Googled how to write a Mills and Boon, and I found Romance Writers Australia, which is where we met. Yeah. And that is where I started to learn things that I should have learnt at uni, and that I hope to God that they're starting to teach now. Things like, tension, hooks at the end of chapters, characters having conflict and goal motivations, all the type of things, how to write realistic dialogue, and the business side of writing too, which, is important, that they don't really touch on at all. Well, they didn't in my degree. And so I started having a bit of success with contests. Never won any, but got close. And then, the closest I got was in, I think it was 2008. I was pregnant with my third child. I came runner-up in the Mills and Boon contest worldwide. The winner got published, but I got to work with an editor for a couple of years. It was supposed to be 1 year. I think they felt sorry for me. But went for 2 years. I had a number of rejections in that time, and not just rejections, but revisions. They asked for me to rewrite things. And I mean, as a writer, we all have to be able, not too precious about our work. We have to be able to rewrite and, edit. Mm-hmm. But I just kept doing what I could. And eventually, they said, I'm sorry. Yeah, what I was doing is I was falling between the lines. I was too sexy sort of for the sweet line, but too sweet for the sexy line. And I just couldn't kind of fit. So they said, if you really must do this, you have to go back to the slush pile. So that was really devastating, because I think it was about 10 years after I'd first decided I was going to write, and went to uni, and I thought I was really, really close. And then I was, not close at all anymore. And I was ready to give up writing, definitely. And then a few friends said to me, Fiona Palmer was one I really remember. She said, why are you going through all these hoops, changing everything, and for Mills and Boon? Why don't you just write a rural romance? And it was at the time when rural romance was just sort of becoming a thing. Obviously, Rachel Treasure had Jillaroo published. There was Fiona Palmer had just got her manuscript, and a few other authors I know had got theirs. And I actually thought I'd missed the boat. I thought, there's already about 4 or 5 rural romance published authors, and you're laughing because we know now how many more came after. But I decided, you know what, I'm going to give this one last ditch attempt. I'm going to write a book. I didn't know how I was going to write a long book because that Mills and Boon are about 50,000 words, and I needed to write, 80 to 100,000. So Fiona Palmer said to me, just write everything that comes into your head. So I thought, okay, I'm going to write, last ditch attempt, I'm going to write the book I want to read, because I'd kind of got to the stage after, it was almost, I think it's 13, 15 years almost by this stage, and I'd kind of got to the stage where I was thinking, you know what, I don't even want to write, but I felt like I had to. I wanted to be published, but the writing was becoming a bit of a drag. I told everyone I know that I was going to be a published author, and I think they all thought I must be terrible because, why is it taking us so long? And so I was I thought, this book, I'm going to write a book. I'm not going to focus on publication. I'm going to try write this new rural romance thing. I'm just going to have fun and write the book I want to read. And that was the book that finally got picked up by my publisher. In between that, though, I sent off while I was writing the rural romance, I sent off one, I called them my Mills and Boon Rejects, to Carina Press, a digital imprint of Harlequin. And I literally sent off a book, I was so over it, that had red marks and stuff in there and comments still left over from the revision because I changed back basically everything they wanted me to take out. The Mills and Boon editors wanted me to take out my final manuscript with them. They wanted me to not make it a Christmas story, not make it a boss employee. I put everything back in that I'd taken out, but then accidentally left a few comments and stuff. I found out later. And so on April Fool's Day, I think it was 2011, I got an email saying that Carina Press wanted to buy my book. So I thought I thought it was real. And then I emailed a whole load of writing friends, and one of them said, are you sure it's not an April Fool's joke? But luckily it wasn't. So I went that was the first thing I got published, the Carina Press book. But then within a couple of months of signing Carina Press, I also signed with Harlequin Australia for a print deal. So it was 15 years of nothing happening, lots of, almost theirs and then not, lots of rejections when I finally started submitting. And also lots of experimenting with sort of not hundreds of different types of writing, but different sort of lengths and things like that. And then suddenly it all started to happen. So I've heard that so many times that people are ready to give up, and that's when something happens.
Yeah.
I also have to say I don't know whether I could have given up, because I think writing, it's like a bug. Once you're bitten, even if you want to give up sometimes. And I do actually often say to new writers who will come up, or people who are aspiring, and they say to me, I think it's so hard, I'm not getting anywhere, I'm just going to give up maybe. And I think they want me to say, no, don't, you can do it. I say, give up, because you might not be able to. And if you can't give up, then you really know that you're supposed to be a writer.
Yeah. Oh, that's some really good advice, that. Actually, I've heard it before from someone, and I want to say it was Elizabeth Gilbert or something, who said something similar. So, yeah.
I love her book, Big Magic. So maybe I can imagine it's along those lines.
Yeah, for sure. I love Big Magic too. It's best in audio. You've got to listen to it in audio, though. She narrates it herself.
Oh, does she? I'll have to do that as well. I've got so many audiobooks lined up, actually.
Tell me about it.
I don't know how you find the time to listen to audio, do this, and write all your books, and everything else you probably do.
Yes. I don't know either.
You've got a time machine, haven't you? What's it? Hermione Granger from Harry Potter.
Yeah, I picked one up in London.
I'll have to go and get one.
I'm actually so used to listening to audio that I can listen on 2 speed, so it's twice as fast as what's narrated. So yeah, I get
an idea. I talk very fast, so maybe I can listen very fast.
Yeah, you probably could.
Try that.
So let's move on, because this is a very long chat.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so you wrote, how many rural romances did you write?
think I've written about 9 rural romances.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's about it. 8 or 9.
8 or 9.
Rural
Excellent.
romance.
And then you did this crazy, I don't know why, move into commercial fiction, women's fiction. Why did you do that?
It was totally an accident. It was not, I mean, I'd always, as I mentioned earlier, I'd always loved kind of reading those style of books. Monica McInerney, Liam Moriarty, the ones I mentioned, Kathy Kelly. So sort of like the women's stories about women's issues and things like that. That's my true love rather than romance. Like, I love romance reading now. I was like reading crime and things like that. But my true love is that kind of, the kind of, we call women's fiction, which doesn't really say much about it, but yeah. And so what happened though is I was driving through to Perth from our town that we're living in the wheat belt at this stage with a friend who's a farmer, and there was a paddock of beautiful, what I thought were purple flowers, and I said to her, "Oh my gosh, what are those gorgeous purple flowers?" And she said to me, "Oh my gosh, that's a weed." She said, "That's Patterson's curse, and it's a toxic to our animals," or whatever. I don't know. She went off on a lecture to me about how bad it was. And then when she calmed down, she said, "You know what though? Patterson's Curse would be a great title for a book." And I was writing rural romance. So I was thinking, yeah, it would. And so I started, we were brainstorming on the way to Perth, and we're like, okay, we're going to have a love curse between, it's a reason why these two can't get together or something, But as I was writing something else, so that had to go sort of on the back burner in my head. And as I started thinking about it, I realised that I didn't want to do a love curse. I wanted to do a family curse. And I can't say what the family curse is because it's a big spoiler for the book. But then just because I wanted to do a family curse, I realised because of what the curse was, I needed a number of sisters. I thought 4. My publisher thought 3. She thought 4 was a bit ambitious, but I stuck with the 4 because I felt like I needed it. So I said to my publisher, I know I'm contracted to write rural romance, but I've got this idea for a book that's a little bit different. And I told her sort of the premise of a family curse and 4 sisters trying to disprove it. And she said, yeah, you know what? Give it a go. And I know how lucky I am because I know I've had other friends who have, asked to sort of move out of the box or try something different and been told, no, stick to what you do well, you're doing well, why would we change it? So, it was something that I just thought I'd give it a shot because I had that story idea. And then that worked really quite well. I enjoyed doing it. The readers seemed to like it. And I think they liked that especially because it still had a rural element. Yeah. It was set mostly in a small town, but it also had city elements and stuff too. So yeah, that was literally the only reason I did it, because an idea came to me. But of course, then once you do one in that genre, then you kind of are expected to do more. And I have, and I've enjoyed that, and I like mixing between the two. I feel like it keeps, when I'm writing rural romance, I want to be writing women's fiction because I think, oh my gosh, that'd be so much easier. And then when I'm writing women's fiction, I think the opposite. So it's always, the grass is always greener.
Yeah, exactly. So your latest book, which has literally just been released as we speak, is called Just One Wish. So tell us about this story.
Well, Just One Wish, with its beautiful green cover. I'm so lucky that. Anyway, it is a story of 3 generations of women. I have with women's fiction. I've done sisters, I've done friends, I've done strangers, and I thought, what haven't I done yet? I haven't done 3 generations of the same family, and I was close to my grandma and my mum, so I was interested in that sort of dynamic and the differences between generations, and so I wanted to write that for a while. I'd also been wanting to write a cruise ship story for a while, but I hadn't got the story in my head about. I didn't know what. I just knew that I wanted to write something set semi on a cruise, and I wanted to write about 3 generations. And then I went to Perth Writers Festival a couple of years ago, and I heard, I think it was Lauren Groff talking, an author, about, I can't even remember what she was talking, but she gave an anecdote during that time, and she said that she very much was a feminist her whole life. She's still a feminist, and she said she had very strong ideas and views about marriage, and she never planned on getting married. And she said, but then she fell in love, and her boyfriend at the time, he really, really wanted to be married. He had strong views on marriage too, and he believed in the institution of marriage, and he wanted to marry her. And when he proposed, she was horrified. But she knew, she said, and she was looking down on him I think she said it was on one knee, and she was looking down and she said, if I say no, I'm going to lose the best person in the world. Like, I love this guy so much, and if I say no, I'm going to lose him. So she said yes. And she said at that stage, I don't know what's happened since, but she said she hadn't regretted it. It was the best decision she'd ever made. And so she changed her views and her sort of values in a way because she'd fallen in love. And I just thought, oh, that's a lovely story. But imagine if she'd said no. Would she ever regret it? You know, like, would she get to the point where she turned her back on love because of her ideals? And when she was old and grey, would she think, I wish I didn't do that? You know, so much of life we think, oh, if only I didn't do this, or if only I didn't do that. So the basis of the story kind of is about an 80-year-old woman who has that regret. She did say no, but nobody around her knows she's had that regret. She's a diehard feminist and academic, and she's a bit of a character. You know, she wears a leather pants at 80 and, you know, drinks and curses and all this sort of stuff. And so then I thought, well, what's her daughter like? Maybe her daughter, she was very unconventional. So I wanted the daughter to have rebelled against this unconventional upbringing. She was brought up by her mother and her two gay fathers, and in the 60s. So even though the 60s was pretty liberal, that was still kind of a not common sort of scenario. And so I thought, what would she be like? And so I have her rebelled against it. She got married young, and she, you know, became a housewife and to dedicated her life to her husband and her kids. But then she's suddenly stumbled across Instagram, and she's an Instagram sensation on how. So she's accidentally become a career woman on Instagram, and is really loving the fame and sort of having a job and having, you know, all this attention. But of course that throws havoc in her world. And then so we've got the granddaughter, her daughter, who's stuck between these two strong women all her life, one who was complete homemaker and the other was the complete other end of the spectrum. And so it's kind of about where she sits and the question of whether, you know, what does it mean to be a woman, and sort of also can you really have it all? You know, all those sort of questions. So yeah, it's about 3 generations of women. It's the first book I've ever written in first person, so it's only from one of their point of views. That was interesting. I had that kind of feeling, like she was telling me, and that sounds really woo-woo and don't usually believe that sort of stuff, but the main character was telling me, no, this is my story. And it was a hard decision to make because it is about 3 women. They're all they're all considered the main characters, and they've all got strong stories. So to tell it from one meant that I then couldn't be inside the heads of the other 2. So it was a bold move. Whether or not it was the right one or not, we're still find out.
Well, I'll be picking up my copy in a couple of weeks when I see you.
Yes, I can't wait.
Yeah, you're of course launching a new book, which means you have to go on book tour.
What a pity.
So you get to come over to Brisbane and spring, summer, so it'll be lovely. So yeah, tell us some of your dates in case people want to come and find you.
Sure. Well, I'll be in WA, which is where I'm from, so, you know, going out to do a few events there, and Queensland and New South Wales. I'm launching the book tomorrow night at the Wembley Hotel. That's Dimmick's Joondalup. So you can find all the details on my Facebook or website. And then I'll be doing a few more events in WA, Mandurah and Bassendean. Then, I'm hitting the road, or the plane, the air, and going to Queensland, where I'm doing a dinner at the Grandview Hotel, and then a few events in various libraries there. And then the Gold Coast, that's on Friday the 8th of November. And then I'll be going to Sydney. I'm doing a couple of high teas. So if you like, you know, eating and drinking like I do, you can come to Better Rent Than Dead. And I'm also doing an afternoon at Anna's Shop Around the Corner. And Anna's Shop Around the Corner in Canalla, she's been doing so many author events. And you've done one there, have you?
I did. I was there with Miles a few months ago.
That's right. I was going to say, I've been watching everyone on Facebook. Everyone seems to go there. Everyone on Instagram. So I've been wanting to go for years. Especially the last year.
It's really small, and considering these people,
she's so many people.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Anyway, so I'll be there as well. So there's a few things going on, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with readers and getting out of my office.
Yep. And then you'll be back into writing something else. Are we going to stick with women's fiction, or?
Well, yes and no. I've got a rural romance coming out next year, something to talk about, which is a follow-on to my last real romance, which was a few years ago, Talk of the Town. Yeah. And I'm currently writing what I hope will come out as my next women's fiction. That's called Flying the Nest. It's about nest parenting. I don't know if you've heard of nest parenting. Yeah. Not empty nest parenting, but nest parenting. And it's also about a long distance relationship and a few other family dramas. So I'm having a lot of fun writing this actually. So hopefully that comes across on the page.
Excellent. Well, it all sounds great. You've got lots going on. Where can we find you online and keep up with everything that you do?
Yep, my website is aracheljohns.com. So simple, except it's Rachel with an A. My mum had to add that extra A. And so there you can all see all the social media links and things on there too, and all the details of my tour. So I hope to see some people. Yeah,
I'm definitely pulling a posse together for the Chermside event. Can't wait. Awesome. It's so exciting. So many good events coming up at the moment.
I know. I've got like in Perth, calendar full almost.
Yeah. So
every night.
Yeah, so romance readers, go out and see Rachel. So that'll be awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you. I'm sorry I can't give a short answer ever, and that I'm really good at rambling.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Jump onto my website, sarahwilliamsauthor.com, and join my mailing list to receive a free preview of my books and lots of other inspiration. If you like the show and want it to continue, you can become a sponsor for just a couple of dollars a month. Go to patreon.com/sarahwilliamsauthor. And remember to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and leave a review of the podcast. I'll be back next week with another loved up episode. Bye!